Hi there. I'm Denise, and welcome to my masterclass on burnt coffee and betrayal, otherwise known as surviving 21st century office politics. I'm 58 years old, and I spent the last 18 years holding together a biotech logistics firm outside St. Paul, Minnesota, with little more than conditional formatting late-night vendor calls and silent crisis aversion. I once rewrote a compliance clause on a government contract overnight because someone on our legal team approved a routing code that would have shipped 5,000 units of medical supplies through rural Pakistan. No one noticed. That's the point. That's my talent. I'm the quiet fix, the person behind the curtain, the one executives call when they need something handled discreetly. You don't make it through nearly 2 decades in a mid-sized American company without learning how to ghost your own brilliance. And yet, there I was, sipping lukewarm coffee from a chipped ceramic mug, watching the owner's son, Drew Halston, age 26 business degree pending walk-in with the confidence of a man who'd never been audited. First thing he said, "All right, Gen X, it's time to TikTok this company into the future." He slapped Chief Growth Architect under his name like it meant something. He couldn't spell logistics without help, but sure teach me how to reinvent our vendor chain using vibes and buzzwords. Drew, I'll just be here with my 47 nested Excel tabs, trying not to choke on this styrofoam cup. Oh, and while you're here, if you haven't subscribed or liked, yet what are you even doing? 97% of you sneak in, binge the drama, and ghost. Meanwhile, I'm out here dropping career-grade vengeance with the precision of a drone strike. Hit that button. Thanks truly. Anyway, Drew introduced a reorg initiative via a Prezi deck full of fire emojis and a looping video of him skateboarding. My department compliance logistics supplier contracts was now labeled Legacy Drag. Translation: we were being replaced by interns with Wi-Fi and vibes named Braden. During Q&A, he pointed at me and said, "Denise is kind of the guardian of like the old stuff, right? What if we just unguard it?" It wasn't a question. It was a public shaming. I didn't flinch. I raised an eyebrow and said, "Let me know when your new plan ships temperature-sensitive materials across borders without triggering an international embargo." Some nervous laughter. Drew blinked like I'd spoken Greek. Then he flashed his frat house smile and said, "Love the energy, Denise. Maybe take a mindfulness Friday." That's when I felt it, that charge in the air. Like ozone before a storm. I had corrected him. In public. And now I was officially marked. He wouldn't forget that moment. Not the eyebrow, not the freight comment, not in front of a full conference room. I'd stepped out of the shadows, and boys like Drew Halston don't take public correction well. Not from women, and especially not women twice their age. After the meeting, I returned to my desk and found a neon pink sticky note on my monitor. Drew wants to schedule a one-on-one rework flowing legacy redundancies, which in plain English meant Drew wants to poke the bear until the bear either quits or mauls him hard enough to call HR. I didn't blink. I opened my laptop and created a folder. I named it Contingency. 3 days later, Drew hosted a Growth Reset Summit in the main conference room, complete with smoothie bowls, cold brew on tap, and a Spotify playlist called Vibes for Disruption. He walked in wearing a pastel blazer with the sleeves cuffed like he was pitching a startup to Shark Tank. He tossed his phone on the table and grinned. We're about to flip the script on stagnation and slation. Yes, he said slation. Then came the real reason we were there, a full restructure. My department logistics compliance procurement was being dissolved and merged into something called brand energy flow, which I later learned he invented last Tuesday. His justification, cross-functional synergy. The only thing cross-pollinating was my rising blood pressure with a potential stroke. He clicked to a slide titled Legacy Bloat. Yes, Growth Killers. Third bullet manual. Ops protocols. Denise in all caps, highlighted in red. Denise is kind of a legend, Drew chirped with a smirk, but we can't let old school processes keep us in the past, right? I could have set his eyebrows on fire with my stare. He called me a drag coefficient on progress. I smiled, took a note, not for meeting minutes into contingency, now subdivided into hostile, reorg, retaliation risk. Drew's dumbassery. That night, I stayed late, not for the quarterly variance reports, but for a vague memory. A vendor contract I'd seen float across my desk a few weeks back. I searched the archives. There it was, 280 Stunden Adesitel, rooted to consulting on digital vertical optimization, the vendor Nara Advisory LLC. No website, no tax history, no digital footprint before last month. But the check cleared. Signed by our CEO, Michael Halston, except the signature was wrong. His normally left-leaning flourish, this one was upright mechanical, like someone copying it from a printout. Drew forged it. Worse? The funds landed in a Cayman account ending in 5518. I knew that number. It was tied to Sparrow Holdings, a shell corp we'd flagged in last year's audit. An audit we were told to drop. I had, but not this time. I opened a new folder, Nara Fraud, and dropped everything in. Then I encrypted the metadata and emailed it to myself. Twice. Thing about Drew. He thought he was playing Minecraft Corporate Edition, but I built the damn server. Stack buzzwords, build fake titles, toss dynamite at processes you don't understand. That was Drew Halston's playbook. But some of us? We were born in the rubble. We've seen what collapses look like, and we know how to bury things deep enough to survive fire flood or frat boy fantasy. And more importantly, we know exactly when to dig them up. I scheduled a meeting with Michael Halston, the CEO, Drew's father, my boss for 16 years, a man who once thanked me with peanut butter crackers from a quick trip when I saved a $9 million deal from falling apart over a customs delay in Frankfurt. He used to wear short sleeves and sit through staff meetings like he gave a damn. Now he wore tailored blazers and let his kid run over meetings like a Segway with no brakes. I presented my concerns. Calm, neutral. I never mentioned the forged signature. I simply raised questions about the Nara advisory payout. He waved his hand like I'd brought up lunch orders. Denise, Drew's still learning. Be patient. Be patient. Like I was mentoring a toddler with a crayon lodged in his ear. I was staring at a 26-year-old trust fund idiot, laundering money through a ghost company in the same offshore haven used by oligarchs and fake churches, and his dad thought it was a teachable moment. I kept my voice even. Of course. Just raising the flag before it scrapes the iceberg. He chuckled. You're the best at what you do, Denise. Just stay flexible. Stay flexible. That's corporate, for shut up until we decide how disposable you are. By Friday, I got a calendar invite from Cheryl in People Ops. Cheryl had the sing-song voice of a kindergarten teacher and the emotional range of a tax form. She opened a file like it was sacred scripture. Denise, you've been flagged as resistant to strategic evolution in our most recent culture audit. Culture audit. That ridiculous survey Drew circulated via Google Forms. The one with slider bars, shaped like dancing emojis, and questions like, do you feel energized by sudden reorgs? I asked who flagged me. We can't disclose that, Cheryl said, but the patterns are concerning. Concerning. One syllable short of problematic. She leaned in with the faux concern of someone who'd sell your house while you were still inside it. Just a heads up, leadership's focused on alignment right now. You might want to recalibrate. That night, I poured 2 fingers of whiskey and opened the old Halston folder on my hard drive. Buried deep was a photo from 2007. 5 of us standing in a half-renovated office beside a whiteboard that read, redo it clean or don't do it at all. That was Sam Halston's motto. Michael's dad, Drew's grandfather, the founder. He hired me when this place was a mess of broken windows and broken promises. And he believed in one thing above all else: integrity. He believed in treating staff and suppliers like partners, not pawns. I remembered the day Sam Halston handed me a manila envelope across a folding table, back when the company had 3 clients and 1 copier that jammed on odd numbers. Inside was a copy of the company's original whistleblower clause, signed and notarized with a Post-it note that read, just in case things ever get ugly. And they will. They had. I traced my finger across the faded photo on my screen, right over the old whiteboard, redo it clean or don't do it at all. Then I opened a blank spreadsheet and started typing. Every vendor Drew had approved in the last 90 days, 56 total. 19 were new. 12 had no federal tax ID. 6 shared overlapping address metadata, 2 listed in Wyoming, both registered through shells in Luxembourg. And 1, NARA Advisory LLC, shared a P.O. box with a chain of vape shops in Tampa, Florida. This wasn't laziness. It was architecture, built by someone too stupid to hide their tracks and too arrogant to realize anyone was tracing them. I didn't rage. I didn't quit. I bought a second USB drive. Industrial grade, waterproof, fireproof. I labeled it Match. And then I reached out to Elise Vandro. 10 years ago, Elise ran compliance at Halston like a Marine sniper, efficient, feared, and always one breath ahead of a subpoena. She retired to a cabin in Upper Michigan. No cell service, no socials, just a landline and a radio that got fishing forecasts. I found her the old way through a burner Gmail she once called her canary inbox. Subject line, shady trees in the Halston orchard. 10 minutes later, my screen blinked. A Zoom link. One line, speak like you're bugged. I'll translate. She appeared in frame wearing a flannel robe, sipping what I'm 90% sure was gin, straight out of a mason jar. You look like hell, she said. Feels mutual, I replied. I read her the vendor names. When I got to NARA Advisory, she paused. Caught a ping from that name back in Q4, she said. Cross-linked to Sparrow Holdings. Shell Corp tied to crypto laundering rings. Guess where she smirked? I didn't blink. Caymans. She grinned. Ding, ding. Same account number tied to a sweatshop ring flagged in 2020, connected to Bitcrate. Same 3 wallets. And the IP that filed the vendor profile, Drew's girlfriend. Routed from her parents' guest house in Napa. Same one listed on her fake skincare brand's LLC paperwork. Elise leaned back. You've got a corpse here, Denise. Don't bury it shallow. The call ended. I sat in the dark for a full minute. The hum of the fridge felt like a countdown. Then I got to work. Every vendor Drew had touched. Receipts, metadata, timestamps. I wasn't building a report. I was building a fire. If you felt that shift the moment the quiet one turned the tide, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Because the next part? Let's just say the fire hasn't finished spreading yet. I started mapping IPs that had accessed our internal vendor portal in the past 60 days. 6 didn't match any known device on the company registry. They weren't from desktops, laptops, or even mobile logins. All 6 pinged from the same VPN node bouncing through a Romanian tunnel server. Classic laundering cloak. Old trick. Sloppy execution. But the real kicker. An NDA template ripped from legal's shared folder, edited and uploaded under a shared intern login. No digital watermark, no clearance trail. The footer still read, draft, not for use, awaiting legal review. The version uploaded slathered in fake e-signatures from vendors I personally knew couldn't spell NDA, let alone sign one. One of them once called me to ask how to rotate a PDF. This wasn't just fraud. It was fraud in Comic Sans. I didn't run to legal, didn't ping Michael, didn't so much as whisper to Cheryl in People Ops. I just kept building the file like a detonator, precise, layered, quiet. I named the folder Matchbook. Inside 61 files, vendor histories, chat logs, server access timestamps, metadata trails, 2 voice memos where Drew bragged about outsourcing the paperwork to his girlfriend's shell company. I encrypted it twice, once with a password only Elise and I knew, and once using a hidden key embedded inside a JPEG of a golden retriever wearing sunglasses. I stored it in 2 places, a cloud vault under a burner Proton mail, and a thumbnail-sized USB tucked neatly inside my chipped Minnesota Vikings mug on my desk. I drink chamomile from that mug every Tuesday. Like nothing's wrong. No more spreadsheets, no more warnings. The match had been struck. All I needed was the right wind. Monday 8:03 a.m. Inbox pinged. Urgent growth crisis response. No agenda. No guest list. Beyond Drew and Michael. Subject line typed in all caps, like a toddler smashing the keyboard with sticky fingers. By 8 to 12, the office was buzzing. Whispers by the Keurig. HR pacing in slow loops. IT hovering near the server room, pretending to check printer queues. Even the interns looked alert, like someone had whispered truth into the air and no one knew how to breathe it. At 8:30 sharp, Drew stormed into the boardroom like he'd just been cast in a startup-themed musical. Aviators, blazer. Swagger louder than facts. Some people he began pointing at me are hoarding legacy systems and obstructing innovation. There it was, the public knife. He clicked the next slide. Rooted resistance. There was my face. A padlock icon photoshopped next to it. Underneath, process gatekeeper, liability risk. Cute. Real cute. Real cute. I'm formally recommending termination. Drew finished spinning toward his father. Effective immediately. Michael Halston said nothing. His face was pale drawn. A light sweat beaded at his collar. He didn't look at me. Not directly. Just a nod toward the door. Denise. A word. We walked in silence down the corridor. His office door shut behind us like a bank vault sealing off oxygen. He didn't sit, just hovered behind his desk, hands, gripping the edge like it might float away. I stood centered, spine-tall hands, gently folded. My calm wasn't for show. I'd passed fury 4 days ago. This wasn't emotion anymore. This was surgery. This has become difficult, he said quietly. I tilted my head. Difficult. He rubbed his temples. Denise, you've always been, look, I don't want this. But you've been flagged. Drew has concerns. The board's watching. I stepped forward. Controlled. Unshaken. Check your inbox. He blinked. What inbox? I repeated. Before you finish that sentence. He hesitated. Part suspicious, part annoyed, but clicked anyway. His screen lit up. The subject line, due diligence. FYI only. He opened the encrypted folder. Matchbook chimed open. Click, click, click. By the third file, the NARA advisory ledger, his expression shifted. His breath caught. This, he whispered. Where did you get this? I said nothing. He looked at me like I'd just handed him a live grenade, one engraved with his son's initials and wrapped in company letterhead. His hands trembled not for my sake, but for his. For what it meant. For the legacy he thought he was protecting. I sat down across from him, crossed my legs. Calm. Would you like me to keep reading, Michael? He didn't answer. You want to explain how Drew forged your signature to funnel money into a fake consulting firm connected to his girlfriend's offshore crypto wash? Still silence. Outside the building hummed like nothing had shifted, but inside the center of power had just tilted. By Tuesday, Michael's office turned into ground zero for whispered strategy sessions. He didn't speak to me after the inbox moment, but the ripple effect said enough. His calendar emptied. Legal meetings ran late, and Drew's role reassigned. He was now head of emerging vision strategy, a made-up title with no team, no access, and no real responsibility. Translation: they locked him in a closet with a fidget spinner and told him not to chew the wires. HR's pivot was laughable. Cheryl from People Ops, who had branded me resistant to alignment just last week, stopped by my desk with a soy latte and a tight little smile. We want to make sure you feel seen. Sure, Cheryl. Seen. And now, watched. The same Cheryl who called me problematic last week tiptoed to my desk holding a soy latte like it was a peace treaty. I just wanted to check, she said, all sticky sweet, if there are any personal boundaries we can better honor moving forward. I stared at her like she'd grown antlers. She giggled nervously. You're valued here? Safe. Safe? I was radioactive, and they all knew it. Meanwhile, Drew began unraveling in real time. First, he fired off a company-wide Slack message about misinformation attacks, blaming internal sabotage for delays in Q3 initiatives. He deleted it 5 minutes later and claimed it was an internal draft. I took a screenshot, of course. Then I noticed 2 folders vanish from the shared drive: Consultant Onboarding 2024 and Budget Track May-July, both tied to vendors listed in my Matchbook dossier. Too late, Junior. He didn't know we'd already placed him under silent audit. Every file he deleted backed up before he even hit enter. Michael had asked for a soft quarantine, still clinging to the illusion he could shield the boy. But this rot ran deeper than Drew's little crypto cosplay. I knew that now. At exactly 4:46 p.m., I returned from the break room and found a brown envelope on my chair. No note, no sender. Inside a printout from accounting. 6 invoices from Vista Bridge Collective LLC, a supposed marketing consultant that billed us for $72,000 over 6 months. The account number matched a known shell wallet belonging to Sparrow Holdings, the same one Drew's girlfriend had used. The approval chain Drew Halston and Jay Halston. Except no one named Jay Halston worked here. Never had. I ran the alias through our internal logins. It pinged an IP address used exclusively in the executive suite, more specifically, one of the secured terminals assigned to Michael's wing. Not Drew's laptop, not the girlfriend's Wi-Fi. Michael's office. I stared at the page, heart steady. No anger, no fear, just confirmation. Drew wasn't acting alone. He had cover, or worse, complicity. I added the documents to Matchbook, dated the encryption key, resynced the backup cloud. Then I made a call not to legal, not to HR, to Sam Halston. Because if anyone had built this place brick by brick, it was the founder himself. And if Sam was still even half the man I remembered, his grandson's countdown had already begun. Thursday morning. Like a delusional magician yanking lies from a burning hat, Drew dropped a press release on PR Wire titled Halston Solutions Redefining the Future. It read like ChatGPT overdosing on buzzwords and Red Bull. He called himself a next-gen disruptor and unveiled his big vision revolutionary vendor fluidity. I nearly spit my coffee across the monitor at the final line. Our transparency is our strength. That's how Drew ended the press release. Transparency. The only thing he's been transparent about is his stunning weaponized incompetence. He was still high on the idea that if he talked fast enough, grinned wide enough, and dropped enough buzzwords, no one would notice the cracks in the foundation or the blood seeping through them. But the audit clock was already ticking. I had receipts. I had signatures. I had login data spanning 3 time zones and enough cross-referenced metadata to make a forensic accountant weep tears of vindication. And he didn't know it, but 2 external auditors, already under NDA, were combing through Matchbook line by line. Elise had even looped in a former SEC liaison. Quiet swarm. Silent storm. That afternoon, legal came knocking. Harris and D'Angelo, 2 suits so polished, I could see my reflection in their worry. They walked into my office like they'd practiced their lines on the elevator ride up, somewhere between concerned professionals and legal hall monitors. D'Angelo did most of the talking. Denise, we appreciate your diligence. However, your employment contract includes very specific language regarding the dissemination of internal material. Unauthorized disclosures could be construed as I opened my desk drawer mid-sentence, pulled out a black folder, dropped it between them. Inside a signed and notarized release from Sam Halston dated 2013, back when the company still smelled like drywall dust and startup panic. Whistleblower immunity. Not a standard clause. A bespoke contract buried in an appendix that never made it into Drew's version of the handbook. They flipped through it like it was radioactive. D'Angelo looked up. This is binding. No shit, I said calmly. And since you're here, add this to your notes. I've scheduled a formal meeting with the auditors Monday morning. Joining us will be representatives from the Office of the Inspector General and 2 federal regulators. Harris cleared his throat. Denise, is that really? It's already scheduled, I replied. Just being transparent. The door clicked shut behind them like a pressure lock sealing underwater. I leaned back, stared at the ceiling, and exhaled for the first time in weeks. Let Drew post his press releases. Let Michael pray to whatever God-rich men call when the tide turns against them. Because come Monday, the fire wasn't going to be metaphorical. Friday morning arrived like a funeral for the old order. The board had been looped in overnight. 6 members. 3 of them I remembered from back when we were still unpacking chairs from U-Haul boxes. Now their inboxes were packed with matchbook exhibits, vendor laundering trails, fake accounts, and one very clean timeline showing over $900,000 siphoned through company funds. At the top of that pyramid, Drew Halston, and the dotted lines. They pointed straight to his father's digital signature. There was nothing outright incriminating, no smoking gun email, no, I approve this fraud memo. But there was enough negligence to ignite a congressional hearing, enough silence to scream complicity. By noon, the office felt like it had been vacuum sealed. No air, no laughter, no buzz. Executives canceled meetings. The Slack channels went radio silent. Cheryl from People Ops shuffled by my desk holding a box of tissues like a toddler with a secret and mumbled something about nervous stomach. Then came the thunder. Sam. Halston. Yes, that Sam Halston stepped off a red-eye from Phoenix in jeans and a windbreaker like he'd just fixed someone's lawnmower and decided to audit a Fortune 500 before breakfast. No entourage, no PR team. Just the man who built this company out of a leaky garage and a 14% interest loan, striding through the glass doors like a one-man reckoning. The boardroom lights dimmed before he even sat down. I was summoned formally. Denise, one director said, adjusting his tie like it might stop the bleeding, "We'd like your help managing this reputational moment." I looked at Sam. He didn't blink. "I'll help," I said. But Drew is permanently removed. No advisory role, no sabbatical, no golden parachute, just removed. The silence that followed cracked at the edges. And then, like a wrecking ball in designer sneakers, Drew burst into the room. "You bitch!" he shouted. "You think you won? You'll regret this." He turned to his father. "Dad?" "Your dad's not in charge anymore," I said, voice steady. He froze. Sam stood. Slow, deliberate. "Drew," he said low and clear. "Go home, and don't come back." The air shattered. Drew's mouth opened, but no words formed. His fingers curled like he could punch the moment back to life. But then finally, he stormed out. Gone. I sat down. Calm. Whole. Opened my laptop. One click. One file. Final ledger. Beneficiaries. I hit send. Copies routed to the board, to legal, to regulators. Every signature, every timestamp, every laundering trail, no wiggle room left. I looked up at Sam. "We clean it," I said, "or we let it burn." He nodded. "Just once. Clean it." Monday morning came with stale muffins and colder silence. The boardroom reeked of panic sweat and toner ink. Michael Halston sat at the far end of the table, jaw-locked, hands folded like a man practicing polite denial. I sat 3 seats down, matchbook open on my screen, fingers laced loosely in my lap. I didn't speak. Not yet. The board had the files. The feds were already dialed in. And the press, still in the dark. But not for long. Then the door opened. Drew walked in, wearing a suit 2 shades too loud and 2 sizes too flashy, like he'd confused the boardroom for a product launch after-party. He opened his mouth, probably about to say something performative and self-important. But before a single syllable escaped, the head of security stepped in behind him. "Mr. Halston," he said, calm but firm. "You need to come with me." Drew blinked, laughed once short, brittle. A nervous tick wrapped in arrogance. "What is this? A joke?" No one laughed. "Let's go," security repeated. Drew turned to his father, eyes wild desperation leaking out in all directions. Dad Michael didn't look up. He stared at the table like it held the last of his dignity. Never met his son's eyes. Drew stood frozen a second too long, the realization calcifying in his chest. Then, with one last look of bitter, burning hate, he walked out, escorted quietly. The door clicked shut behind him, like the punctuation on a collapsed dynasty. The room exhaled. Michael cleared his throat, though his voice barely surfaced. Given recent developments, he said, "I believe it's in the company's best interest that I step down effective immediately." No one objected. A board member turned to me. "Denise." Pause. The vote was unanimous. I nodded. Once. They didn't say the words interim COO right away, not until 20 minutes later. But the tone had already shifted. The announcement already drafted. The email waiting for one final click. And as for Drew's girlfriend, her name now sat inside an active fraud complaint filed with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. The charges weren't public yet, but the leak was coming. Not from me. I didn't say a word. Didn't have to. The truth doesn't need a press release. Just daylight. That afternoon, I returned to my office. Same chipped Minnesota Vikings mug. Same desktop folder. Only now it had a new name, Ashes. Because legacies can rot. Names can fail. But the system, the actual system, remembers who protected it. Some boys inherit empires. I built mine from fire and fallout. This one hit different. There's something deeply satisfying about watching quiet competence crush loud entitlement. A reminder that the ones who never brag are often the ones holding the blueprint to the vault key and the receipts. If you're still here, you get it. You're one of the quiet ones. The underestimated. Stick around. There's more coming. If you're still here, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment. Tell me what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have stayed quiet? Would you have walked away? Or would you have done what I did, stay calm, stay sharp, and wait for the moment the truth needed a witness? Your voice matters here. Support people like me, people who don't shout, but build, protect, and outlast. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't political. I was prepared. And here's the truth I've learned after 30 years in boardrooms and break rooms. Quiet power is still power. You don't have to be loud to win. You just have to know where the fire exits are and when to light the match. So leave a comment, share your story, and if you felt something reading this, hit subscribe. Because you and I, we've got more fires to build.